I want to tell you a story that was never designed to survive Hollywood, because Hollywood doesn't preserve truth. It preserves illusion. Elizabeth Taylor didn't tell this story to be remembered kindly. She told it because she was tired of being remembered incorrectly. What I'm about to share isn't a scandal. It's not a revelation meant to shock. It's something far more uncomfortable. It's the truth behind a legend. Most people believe Elizabeth Taylor was born powerful, that she entered Hollywood already confident, already fearless, already larger than life. That belief is wrong. Elizabeth wasn't born strong. She was conditioned. By the time she was old enough to understand the meaning of applause, she had already learned something much more dangerous, that love could be withdrawn at any moment. Hollywood didn't raise her. It trained her. Her childhood didn't end in a dramatic moment. It disappeared quietly. There was no farewell to innocence. No warning. Just longer days on set, heavier expectations, and adults who praised her for being professional instead of protecting her for being a child. She told me she learned early that being good wasn't enough. She had to be useful. In Hollywood, usefulness is mistaken for worth. Elizabeth learned to read rooms before she learned to read people. She could sense when a director was losing patience, when a producer's interest shifted, when silence meant danger. She said fear became her first teacher. Fear of being replaced, fear of being forgotten, fear of disappointing the people who controlled her future. Hollywood didn't need to threaten her. The system itself was the threat. She spoke about the camera like it was a living thing. It didn't just record her image. It evaluated her. Every close-up carried judgment. Every angle felt like a decision being made about her value. She said beauty wasn't something she enjoyed. It was something she maintained under pressure. Because beauty in Hollywood isn't celebrated, it's monitored. And once it fades, so does protection. Elizabeth understood something few people admit out loud. Hollywood doesn't hate women. It just doesn't forgive them for aging. Men were allowed to grow older, rougher, heavier, more distinguished. Women were expected to remain frozen in time. She said that knowledge followed her every year of her life. The mirror wasn't her enemy. The calendar was. Pain became a constant companion. Serious illnesses, surgeries that left her body weakened, accidents that should have ended careers, but rest was never part of the contract. Elizabeth told me Hollywood doesn't ask if you're healed. It asks if you're available. Returning to work was encouraged. It was survival. Medication wasn't indulgence. It was adaptation. She said something that still echoes in my mind. They didn't need me well. They needed me working. The public judged her harshly for that. They called her excessive. Unstable. Out of control. What they never saw was the discipline required just to function under that pressure. She was punished for enduring pain quietly, and criticized the moment that pain became visible. In Hollywood, suffering is acceptable. Acknowledging it is not. Then there was love, or what appeared to be love from the outside. 8 marriages became headlines, jokes, moral lectures, but Elizabeth never described those relationships as reckless. She described them as desperate. Not desperate for attention, desperate for safety. She told me she wasn't chasing romance. She was chasing relief. Relief from being alone in a world that constantly watched her. Relief from being desired but never known. Relief from the exhaustion of performing strength every single day. Marriage wasn't escape. It was shelter. Elizabeth admitted she was terrified of being alone, not because she needed validation, but because loneliness felt like erasure. In Hollywood, attention equals existence. Silence feels like death. Every relationship began with hope. And ended with the same quiet fear. If I am no longer chosen, do I still matter? She said the loneliest moments of her life weren't spent by herself. They were spent in rooms full of people who loved the image but ignored the woman. Fame surrounded her. Connection avoided her. That contradiction never stopped hurting. She spoke about fame as if it were a beautifully decorated prison. From the outside, it looked like privilege. From the inside, it felt like exposure. She couldn't disappear when she needed to. She couldn't grieve privately. She couldn't fail without witnesses. Even silence belonged to the public. Trust became impossible. Everyone wanted something from Elizabeth Taylor. Very few wanted Elizabeth. She said the most dangerous question she ever asked herself was, Who would still love me if they came? Ras turned away. She rarely liked the answer. The world admired her confidence, but confidence was her greatest performance. Strength was something she learned to simulate long before she ever felt it. Inside, fear lived quietly. Fear of aging. Fear of irrelevance. Fear that once the beauty faded, the love would vanish with it. Hollywood teaches women to fear time itself. As she grew older, the industry's affection changed tone. The admiration became nostalgic. The opportunities became symbolic. The phone rang less. She watched Hollywood fall in love with younger versions of what she once was. That hurt more than scandals ever did. Because scandals pass, replacement is permanent. Elizabeth told me the greatest lie about her life was that she had everything. Yes, there were diamonds. Yes, there was power. Yes, there was fame beyond imagination. But there was also isolation, suspicion, a constant awareness that love was conditional. She said, I was admired by millions and truly known by almost no one. Toward the end of her confession, she wasn't angry. She was clear. She said if she could trade all the glamour for a quiet life, one where she could walk and notice, age naturally, and love without headlines, as she would do it without hesitation, not because her life lacked meaning, but because it lacked ownership. Elizabeth Taylor didn't want sympathy. She wanted honesty. She wanted people to understand that behind every Hollywood legend is a human being who paid a price for greater than applause. And before she walked away, she left me with a final thought. She said, if you want to become a legend in Hollywood, make sure you understand what legends lose. That was Elizabeth Taylor's confession, the one Hollywood never wanted you to hear. And once you hear it, you will never look at glamour the same way again. There was one subject Elizabeth spoke about more slowly than the rest. As if choosing the wrong words might expose something Hollywood still tries to hide. She talked about power. Not the kind people imagine: money, influence, fame, but the kind that decides who is allowed to grow and who must remain frozen. She said, Hollywood never feared women. It feared women who lasted. Men were allowed to age into authority. Wrinkles became character. Weight became presence. Time made them legendary. For women, time was treated like a betrayal. She watched male stars grow older and more respected, while women were quietly replaced for doing the same thing: living. Elizabeth understood this long before the public ever noticed. She felt it in casting rooms, in conversations that suddenly changed tone, in compliments that shifted from desire to nostalgia. Hollywood didn't say she was no longer valuable. It simply behaved that way. She said control was never allowed. It didn't come with threats. It came with expectations. What to wear. How to behave. How much emotion was acceptable. How much desire was allowed. Women were expected to be powerful but not threatening, beautiful but not aging, independent but still manageable. Elizabeth learned that defiance carried consequences. So did honesty. Silence was safer. She told me she often wondered how different her life would have been if she had been born a man. Not because she wanted male privilege, but because she wanted time. Time to fail without being erased. Time to grow without apology. Time to exist without explanation. Hollywood gave her everything except permission to be human. As the years passed, something inside her changed. The fear didn't disappear, but it softened. She said there came a moment when she realized she had already survived the worst. She had been desired, judged, worshipped, discarded, and she was still standing. That realization didn't make her bitter. It made her honest. Elizabeth spoke about aging with a kind of quiet clarity. She said the hardest part wasn't losing attention. It was understanding how much of her identity had been built around it. When the applause fades, you are forced to meet yourself for the first time. She said many people never survive that moment. In her later years, she thought often about regret. Not regret for the marriages, not regret for the scandals, not regret for the excess. Her regret was simpler and heavier. She regretted how long it took her to believe she had value beyond being seen. She told me something that felt like the real confession. She said the greatest achievement of her life wasn't fame, or beauty, or even success. It was endurance. The ability to remain compassionate in a system designed to consume and discard. The ability to feel deeply after decades of being evaluated instead of understood. The ability to care when Bitterness would have been easier. Elizabeth said Hollywood never taught her how to live. It only taught her how to survive. Everything else, love, meaning, dignity, she had to learn on her own. Late. Painfully. Honestly. When people speak of her legacy, they mention films, diamonds, glamour. She wanted something different remembered. She wanted people to know that the woman behind the legend was flawed, frightened, resilient, and real. That she was not a cautionary tale but a human one. Near the end of her life, Elizabeth no longer feared being forgotten. She feared being misunderstood. She wanted people to understand that her life was not a fantasy but a negotiation. Between visibility and privacy, between desire and dignity. Between survival and selfhood. She said something that night that still stays with me. She said, Hollywood didn't destroy me, but it never loved me the way people think it did. It loved what she represented. It protected what it could profit from, and it moved on when the illusion became harder to maintain. Elizabeth Taylor's story isn't about excess. It's about endurance. It's about what it costs to remain visible in a world that equates attention with worth. And it's about what remains when the lights finally dim. When I think about her now, I don't see a legend. I see a woman who survived a system that rarely allows women to age with dignity. A woman who carried beauty like a burden and strength like a necessity. A woman who paid the price of fame in full. That is the confession Hollywood never wanted you to hear. Not because it is scandalous, but because it is true. And once you understand it, you will never look at Hollywood or its legends the same way again.